Let's get started with this month's discussion. It's June, and we are down to our fourth fifth presentation already. Like we discussed, today we'll be reading Arabinda Samanta's Living with Epidemics. The text particularly focuses on diseases which ravaged colonial Bengal from 1814 as an entry point to to late 19th century. So this session will be particularly reading his chapter on malaria. We promised that we'll be discussing two chapters, but then I realized that it will be too much for a single session, and then I have also have some references and visuals to show. So for keeping that we will have discussion also in consideration, I am just taking one chapter for now, and maybe we will have another reading in upcoming weeks. So to get started with this particular chapter, there is a lot of resemblance between what I am going to discuss today, at least in some parts, at some level, and what Aryan discussed in last session when he discussed Bardwan fever particularly. So, anyways, Pritikana is also joining. So, hello, Pritikana. Yeah. Uh, so we
I
are getting
wasn't able
started.
to join. I asked in the group, but nobody responded. I wasn't able to join at first.
Oh, I am really sorry. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't check WhatsApp also.
Yeah, for some reason, my Google Meet keeps saying that there is a new Google Meet app, and I have to download it or something along those lines. And I checked Play Store is the same app itself, so I'm not sure what's going on.
I think maybe try some other device next time. That would help because last time also the same thing happened with the Google Meet, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening.
Mm, it's okay. So, anyways, welcome, and we are getting started with our discussion. So, in this particular chapter on malaria, Arabinda Samanta gives a very broad panoramic view of how this particular disease has transformed itself over the years, right? So he actually begins the whole discussion by talking about uh, Vedic references to malaria. That way, he talks about how in Atharva Vedas. So, among Vedas, for those who don't know, there are four Vedas, right? And among those, only Atharva Veda has explicit references to medicines and diseases and all that, somewhere related to medicine and diseases, and shlokas related to it. So that's the gist of Atharva Veda. I am no scholar of it, but to get an idea of what it contains particularly, each Veda has its own specialization. Veda meaning knowledge. Other Veda has its own touch on these kind of diseases and how to get rid of it. So in that we can find there are some references particularly about this particular mosquito. So we know that Ronald Ross, for those who have read Calcutta Chromosome, they must be aware already of this fact. But anyways, that Sir Ronald Ross was awarded the Nobel Prize for his malarial research. He basically found the connection between the mosquito and the malarial parasite. So this connection was established by his research, which found that female Anopheles mosquito was responsible for transmitting the disease called malaria. So that was his breakthrough, and for this particular reason, he was awarded the prize in 1902. But controversially, like a lot of claims do happen that Vedic knowledge has existed long back, and we knew all this even before these people got the name for it, these people got the patent for it. So, similarly, in a very controversial sense, Arabinda Samanta doesn't hesitate, but he, anyways, puts it out that in all probability, the relation between mosquito and malaria were not unknown to the Vedic people. He says that there were references to phrases or words like kusala. Kusala means needle like proboscis, and lohutasayam Lohitazium as in the bloody mouth. So I will just put it down in the chat box for some reference. Kusala means needle-like proboscis, and Lohitazium means bloody mouth. So, and there is also some other phrases which kind of makes connection. That is like how these mosquitoes used to infect people, bite people during late evening hours. So there are dusk, as in dwellings of the dusk, as in it's mentioned Sala Parintrayanti Sayam, as in Sayankalam is some word which I am familiar, which is something I think exists in Sanskrit as well as Tamil. I hope it is also there in Malayalam, if someone could correct me. But Sayankalam is a pretty popular word which has its origin from Sanskrit. And this word Sala Parintrayanti Sayam also refers to dusk period, where these mosquitoes usually roam freely, and they do cause disease like malaria, is what this particular phrases from Atharva Veda mention. And it also has references to using odorous or fumigating medications to ward off these insects and also the disease through these solutions by using uh, some odorous and fumigating uh, medicines. So that way, it is not just Vedic references, but also Sharaka and Sushrita, who are one of the famous Ayurvedic practitioners that we have known in Indian history. They have also made it very clear in their respectful treatises, which is Sharaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita. So, in both these texts written around 300 BC and 100 BC, they have made references to Jwara. Jwara as in fever. So, Jwara is the common name for fever in Sanskrit, and also in Tamil, we do have this phrase Jwara. Must be there in some other languages, in some other variation, perhaps. But yeah, so there is some references, and it has been metaphorically put that this disease comes as in seed and it invades body, and fever, it causes fever, and when the seed matures and sprouts, the fever increases, and once the energy of the seed dies out, it gets worn out, then the body restores its health. So and this whole process is not linear, and it happens to grow again, and it will worn out again, and it will grow again. So the fever comes as an ebb and tide. So these are the metaphors. So the problem with how Ronald Ross got Nobel Prize and how our discoveries or our hypothesis about malaria and mosquito is not acknowledged particularly is because we handled these particular diseases as in symbolic manner, as in metaphors. We didn't provide concrete evidence or as uh, as science would want it right now through multiple clinical trials and peer reviews. We haven't done, or we do not have such existing robust literature on it. We do have such references, but they are passing references or they are metaphorical references. Hence, we were not able to prove it very concretely. So that's there about how malaria assumption by Arabinda Samanta that it should have existed in Indian subcontinent for a long period of time since Vedic era. But later on, but nevertheless, these diseases were there, but it was never an epidemic of sorts until colonial era. So, what exactly happened that these particular disease, like a common fever which would come and go and all that, how did it happen to become an epidemic, a life-threatening disease? So that is the question which interests us as readers and also Arabinda Samanta, and he does an extensive archival research, and he makes several pointers, which is, of course, illuminating for that matter. Because during COVID 19, also, I think almost all of us would have understood that these diseases are not really like, I mean, at old age, I think people would have understood that diseases were divine retribution. It was out of cosmological corruption that you are getting punished right now. But uh, at present, in this 21st century, I think we who have faced COVID-19 together, I think we have a common understanding that these diseases doesn't just fall off from nowhere and it just pandemonically spreads, right? Because we know the origins, we know where it comes from. Some people would say conspiracy theories, but that's out of scope for our discussion today. But what interests us is that it comes from places like wet markets, let's say. And I mean, by wet market, we are not ostracizing certain geographical places or certain racial spaces, but rather we should question how wet markets is also a place of neoliberal consumption, where we are overexploiting the natural resources, where we have already destroyed the ecological habitat, we have disturbed the food chain, and all that, right? So, somewhere when we are extremely teasing out the natural way of being, natural way of things, and how it works out, then I think somewhere this virus sort of breaks out. Because of the natural disturbances, right? So we understand that COVID-19 must have emerged somewhere because of the excessive consumption of uh, fish or meat or whatsoever through those wet market productions. And as a result, it led to a larger problem that we faced for over 2 years, and even now that it is coming back again, right? So the thing is, with malaria also, he makes some similar common assumptions that during colonial era, uh, a lot of developmental policies came into place, and of course, these developmental policies had its own agenda. And uh, we know that most of the settler colonies were established first. The East India companies were established first in Bengal and Madras and Bombay. So these are the coastal areas where these kind of settlements were situated. And out of these places, Bengal had one of the first outbreaks of malarial epidemic because of the rise in colonial infrastructure. What infrastructure, what sort of infrastructures, particularly roadways, railways, embankments, and all this, uh, were produced massively, and of course for trade purposes. But what came out as a side effect of these developmental policies that were inconsiderate or not really well thought of in that point of time is that it was disrupting the natural topography of Bengal, of those riverine Bengal at that particular time. And it caused several uh, drainage obstructions. So, what happens to be the natural flow of water got obstructed at so many points, and it caused production of several marshlands, which happen to be the breeding grounds for malarial mosquitoes. So, this whole sociology of development has been extremely uh, political. In that sense, it was benefiting the trade of the imperial empire, but rather it was not really contributing to the development or even the health of the local people. For that matter, it also these developmental policies and the construction of colonial infrastructure not only obstructed drainage, which was one of the major visible uh, shift we could see, major visible problem that we could finger point at. But second problem was that these policies, these railroads, these embankments were built on farmlands that were located right beside these riverine areas. And these loss of farmlands also enabled uh, lack of livelihood for laborers and peasants, and they had to migrate. So there was a labor migration, and these laborers migrated to coal fields, tea estates, and all those places. So there was a loss of livelihood, and they had to migrate, and then there is no farmlands in the first place. So over this period of migration, what happened is that these people going to those coal fields and tea estates were also affected due to insanitary hygiene conditions over there. And this is exactly what I was pointing out, that what Aryan Thakur was talking in the last session about birdborne fever, the Kalazar, right? So when some Bengali population shifted to these tea estates and coal fields, they were exposed not just to malaria but also to other diseases because of insanitary conditions, extreme crowding, and a lack of proper housing. So so that is a second problem, that this developmental policies not just created drainage issues but also uh, migration issues and subsequent health problems. It created changes in crop pattern, and what changes it exactly made is that usually the natural crops that were grown in this particular region uh, was able to control the larger biodiversity and habitat. It controlled the population of not just larger birds and animals, but also the mosquitoes. So everything and health was at a balanced scale. But this is exactly where the colonial capitalism comes in, where Samanta, Arabinda Samanta makes a very brilliant connection. That opening of Suez Canal in Egypt during World War period mm, uh, made the world trade so swift and so quick, and there was a larger need for products and larger need for production and consumption simultaneously. So in order to satisfy those global markets, the colonized spaces, particularly like in this context, Bengal became the fertile site for production of cash crops like jute. So instead of producing native crops, they started producing large amount of jutes in Bengal. And what exactly was the problem is that uh, this jute needed so much amount of water, not just in terms of production, but also in terms of its manufacturing process. And when jute also dies out, the jute decomposes with the water, and it created the perfect breeding ground for malaria. And it is almost like a web process, that one small step for development that was led by Britishers caused so many pattern of problems simultaneously, and it all converged at one point that malaria became not just a disease but also an epidemic. So that was the pivotal point. So now that malaria has become an epidemic and we get it, so how did the people react to it? Because it's new. It's new to the native people who previously treated it as a jwara, as a normal fever. So how did they actually react to it? One of the most common responses would be that most of the diseases have always been worshipped in India, right? So there is a goddess for, and most of these diseases are goddesses. But again, that's another discussion for another day. But I will just give you some reference names, that for cholera we have Ola Bibi or Ola Shandi, and for smallpox we have Shitala, and in South India we have Mariamma and Angalamma, and so many deities are there who are spread out in so many different names, Fool Mata, Shamari Mata. So these diseases have several manifestations, and for each manifestation, we have different goddesses. So same goddess invoked during those particular outbreaks. But in the case of malaria, we never had any particular goddess for reasons not clearly pointed out. Even Samantha is not able to clearly point out, but he is able to point out a particular cultural difference, as particularly to say that how upper class Hindus didn't have any particular worship of malarial goddess or something like that, but rather we have uh, marginalized communities, the lower caste communities, worshipping Jwarasur. So since we have already discussed that how malaria was treated as a jwara, as a fever, it has also been a reason for invoking Jwarasur. So let me just show you a image of Jwarasur for those who are here. Let me share screen. Yeah, so I hope the screen is visible, right? So that is the image of Jwarasur, and it is commonly associated with Shitala, the smallpox goddess. So what's the story behind is that Jwarasur came out of the teardrop of, I guess, I guess, teardrop of Vishnu or Brahma. Was it? Okay, I think it was a teardrop or a sweat drop. Came out from one of the Trimurtis, either Shiva, Brahma, or Vishnu. I will clarify it later. So Shiva's third eye issued a drop of sweat. Yeah, so it's written there. So Shiva's third eye issued a drop of sweat, and through that particular sweat drop, Jwarasur came out. And when this body came out, it was you could see it was dwarfish, and it was jet black in color, and it had a blood color cloth and all that, and it was inflicting fever to all the devas, all the gods. So what happened is Vishnu, in order to curb this particular spread, he cuts down this particular demon. And what happens is that when he did cut it out, this demon grew back again. He cuts into three pieces, and three pieces comes together and joins with three heads, with arms, so many arms, and legs, making it capable of going in all eight directions at the same time. So it becomes a very much symbolic visual representation of how epidemic spreads out in all directions at the same time. So that is the representation of Jwarasur. So Jwarasur was only one of the goddesses who is kind of associated with malaria. And again, for those who have read Kolkata Chromosome again, Amitav Ghosh does talk about it as a novel of fever, delirium, and discovery, right? So what fever he exactly discusses is basically the malarial fever, but he invokes certain characters like Mangala Baby in this particular novel, uh, who Ghosh shares as something like inspired from Shitala and the sidekick Lakan. If you remember, if you have read the novel again, the Lakan is an inspiration from the Jwarasur character. So this is something that Ghosh has very much agreed, and his inspirations comes from the religious texts, that is Shitala Kavyas, that talk about how to treat diseases and what to, not exactly how to treat diseases, but what exactly to do, what religious rituals that you have to perform when you're infected by smallpox. But coming to malaria, there is no particular religious text as such, but certain marginalized communities who had no idea how to deal with it, who had no scientific awareness of this particular disease, had no measure but to resort to this particular demon worship. And again, because it is a demon, that was also one of the reasons that people were hesitant from upper classes, the gentry classes, that they were hesitant to worship this particular entity, right? So that is there. So since the common idea of how or how a goddess is worshipped, how a religious entity is worshipped, is now out of place, given that it is not mostly employed. Uh, Again, coming back to the question, how did the people respond to it? People is a very homogeneous entity, so Arabinda Samanta deconstructs it down to rural gentry, middle class intelligentsia, and indigenous medical practitioners, and finally the ordinary people. So when it comes to the ordinary people, Uh, and again, this is also like it's for our ease of understanding that he breaks it down. But again, these four communities also interact together, right? So we should keep that in mind. So when it comes to this ordinary people, particularly the most marginalized people, they resorted to Jorasur, but that is what did the rural gentry and middle class people did? They had this mobility to migrate to healthier places and towns which had uh, more health infrastructure, like Calcutta for that matter. But of course, colonial Calcutta had its own share of problems with several diseases popping out every now and then. Poonam Bala, for that matter, has done a whole thesis on how Calcutta as a colonial city had served as breeding ground for so many epidemics, right? So that is another case. But people in rural areas had to suffer the most because the health factor had become a huge problem that they were not able to mend for themselves, and there is no infrastructure, there is no doctor facility, and even if doctors arrive from towns and cities, they would ask for hefty fees, which they were not able to afford. These hefty fees included travel charges, palanquin charges in which they were carried. So, uh, so a lot of things came in together in this. So there was a critical role for indigenous medical practitioners in this. Uh, so I will discuss that what exactly the indigenous medical practitioners had play a role to play in curbing malaria. But before that, what exactly did the colony did? What exactly did the colonial state take accountability of this particular disease? Because the whole problem became into an epidemic, it ballooned into an epidemic because of the developmental policies which was not well thought of, right? So did they take the accountability? Well, a mix of yes and no, because all of their concerns would of course go to the profits, and only when the profit got hindered, they were able to focus on the public health of the larger society. So with that came other share of problem, like quinine was introduced as one of the solutions. Malaria, we know that malaria can be cured by administration of quinine, but even during World War, there was several adulteration of so many products, and quinine was not an exception. So quinine was extremely adulterated, and it caused even more side effects and problems to the people. So that particular intervention by colonial government didn't really take off well. And next point is that the whole doctors, the supply of colonial doctors, the white doctors, was also not received by well by the community, because they were white doctors, they were male doctors, and moreover, they were foreigners, they were strangers, and a treatment by them was not really well received or accepted by the females or even the males who are the custodian of females. Uh, and they restrained themselves from getting treated, and they were ready to sacrifice their life even if it was at the cost of getting treated by a white male stranger doctor, a foreigner doctor, right? So even the quinine was not sufficient, it was adulterated, and the white doctors were not received well. So even the colonial army, the colonial empire had the public health of colonial India had only so much in their hands to deal with or to contribute. So they produced a supply of native doctors. Native doctors, as in the South Asian doctors from Calcutta, Bengali doctors basically. So they trained Bengalis to become doctors, and they supplied native doctors to cure uh, malaria and to produce awareness, to spread awareness among rural communities particularly. So one among those doctors is particularly the anti-malaria society of Colonial Bengal is pretty famous one, and one particular doctor like is even Brahmachari. So in our previous discussion, even Aryan was talking about even Brahmachari, his role in the Kalas uh, epidemics, right? So he was responsible for producing urea stibamine, highly effective treatment for Kala Azar. But in this particular, he also had his own share of role in treating malaria. Uh, so he was also part of the larger native doctor community who not only created such medicines but also created sufficient awareness among the people. Uh, right. So that being said, this was one of the key intervention that enabled some amount of curbing malaria in colonial Bengal. Other measures like langar khanas or gruel kitchens were set out in rural communities again, but even they were shut down because of the caste anxiety people had. They were worried about getting fed by lower caste people or some other caste people. So even such community measures were shut down. But one of the things which worked exactly was native doctors who were having the cultural competency and who were easily able to gel with the local community. So that way, malaria was able to be fended off, and it was easy for them to treat also because the communication was clear and the fee was also marginal because they used to camp in the rural communities and all. So these are some of the pointers given by uh, Arabinda Samanta in this particular chapter. And now we will get to few literary references. So Arabinda Samanta does give a lot of reference. If you have read this particular chapter, you might find out several Bengali literature references. I hope Pritikana would have read it, or she must have been already aware of some texts. She would give us some insight. But the thing is, I have read particularly two books, Palli Samaj and Calcutta Chromosome is not mentioned by Arabinda Samanta in this text, but Rohan Deb Roy does talk about it in malarial subjects. And we have also shared this particular PDF in the last, after last session in our group. So Rohan Deb Roy's malarial subject does have brief insights about Calcutta, Amitav Ghosh Calcutta Chromosome, but I have read Palli Samaj, and I do have some knowledge of Pandit Moshe because there is no particular translation, I believe, for Pandit Moshe, but yeah, I do know the story. I have read secondary texts on it. So Pandit Moshe deals with cholera. We will keep it for the next session. But Palli Samaj is literally translates as village society, if I'm not wrong. Palli Samaj does translate to village society, right? Yeah, so it's about how there is this. Okay, so before getting into this particular text, okay, I myself work on Indian outbreak narratives, and most of you must be familiar about it already. So one of the main key specifications of Indian outbreak narratives is that, and most of them produced from Bengal. Again, Bengali literature contributes significantly to it. And what was the idea towards it is because people like Tagore and so many other Bengali writers like Sarat Chandra, what they felt as towards these epidemics is that it was not some divine punishment, but it was rather a way of social punishment, that because of the social evils that exist in society, that we were split in terms of caste, in split in terms of religion, there was a bigotry, that is patriarchy, and all these social evils manifested itself as these particular diseases. And there is this sort of guilt which these writers invoke among the readers, that the community in a sense or sometimes deserves such outbreaks, such epidemics, because of their backwardness in their mindset. And that's why these writers use epidemics as a backdrop or as a metaphor to talk about larger social pathologies. So they are not interested in the pathology of the disease in itself, but they are mostly interested in the social pathology, right? Uh, again, when we talk about malaria as a particular word in itself, malaria is translates literally as mal odor or bad breath or bad air, foul air, right? And it talks a lot about how a certain environment in itself is uh, extremely foul or malicious or something like that, malignant, or it's not good for health, uh, not good for being, or something like that. And it also translates very metaphorically about how colonial people saw India, the colonized land in itself. They saw it's completely unfit to live. It was plagued by tropical diseases. The people were just disease carriers, and they were extremely unsanitary in their lifestyle. So that was a common perception also. So the nomenclature of malaria in itself speaks a lot. And coming now to this particular text, Pali Samaj, which is a brilliantly written text, Sarat Chandra is not just a writer, but he is also, in a sense, in a lot of sense, he expresses his anger towards Bengali society about the differences in class, like Shotolok and Badralok, and how people were fighting amongst themselves. And that is this particular protagonist. His name is Ramesh. He comes from University of Roorkee, like basically our alma mater. And he comes from Roorkee, and uh, before Roorkee, University of Roorkee later transitioned to IIT Roorkee. For those who don't know, it transitioned in 2001. So before that, it was called University of Roorkee. So even in the novel, the protagonist comes from the same institution, and he is well educated, and he has social awareness. He has this ethical concerns towards equality and social harmony. But when he comes to this particular village, he finds himself as a misfit because of a lot of problems, and one of the main problem is that um, his the religious conflict which was there, and also the Shotolok Badralok conflict, which always made him a misfit in a lot of sense. So uh, to detail on such particular social differences, I will just share this particular excerpt from another chapter by Nishi Pulugarta. So there is Nishi Pulugarta's edition on literary representations of pandemics, epidemics, and pestilence. So that is this particular chapter by Shubham Datta on epidemic, anxiety, and narrative aesthetics. It's a brilliantly written novel, and there are some self-translations of Pandit Masha also. So if you are interested, do give it a read. And so in this
Could you
particular
repeat the
text
name, please? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
of the text, uh, yeah. So the text name is Literary Representations of Pandemics, Epidemics, and Pestilence. So yeah. So in this particular text, he does a brilliant work of analyzing this particular novel. Uh, he does make references of how malaria was also gendered again in this particular novel as Rakshashi. And again, this particular novel talks about two different diseases. One is malaria and one is smallpox. And there are several references to Shitala also. But again, one particular difficulty given by these outbreak narratives is that they are not talked in depth. They are talked as passing references, but as these writers are mostly interested in social pathology, as I said before, they are not interested in the disease in itself, but they are more interested in its political relation. Right, so malaria appears strikingly political in relation to other female characters of the novel, and Shubham Datta is right about this particular argument also. So like how we discussed that the colonial policies of developments like roadways, railways has contributed to the spread of malaria. In this particular novel, there is also instance when Ramesh, as an educated man and a wealthy man, tries to bring several reforms to this particular village. And he remains an outsider to this space. because of his liberal humanist modernity. But he tries to do something to the village, and he does contribute to its development in a way that what happens is that there are certain roadways, and and the construction of such roads was so that it created several marshlands around it. It created several stagnant pools around it. So every time when a monsoon strikes the village, several deaths occur. And one such monsoon also strikes malaria onto the female protagonist of this particular novel, who is Rama. So, in order to curb such spread of malaria, he joins hands with the local community. He educates them. He becomes a school teacher, and he spreads awareness and of social harmony first, rather than let alone speaking of malaria. He rather talks about a larger social and moral restructuring of the village, and he constructs. He later on invests his capital in constructing infrastructure and making something out of this particular village. That way, he not only curbs the disease, but in the meantime, in order to curb the disease, he had to curb the social disease first. So that was the link. That was the link that Palli Samaj has been trying to establish throughout the narrative. So that's that is one of the literary references that I was able to focus in this particular presentation. We promised to discuss two different chapters, but I later realized that talking about one chapter in itself would take a lot of time, given its scope and several paradigms that we are taking in. We are taking a historical paradigm, we are taking archival paradigm, and then we are coming to literary paradigm. So there is a lot of depth in this particular chapter. So we will push for a discussion sometime in the upcoming week. So if anyone has any inputs, and if anyone has read this particular chapter and has any insight from literature particularly, do share your thoughts.
I mean, most of the Bengali literature that I have read have passing references to both malaria and cholera. But it's mostly cholera that takes the center stage when it comes to the novels that I've read in from both Sarachandra or Tagore as well. Especially Sarachandra, I think most of the novels that I've gone through are focused on cholera as a very dangerous disease, which it was. It was a waterborne disease, and Bengal's waterways were very much infected in those days because of, as you pointed out, the infrastructural issues, the agricultural issues. So especially during the monsoons, malaria and cholera were two of the diseases that killed off like in every season. It was like thousands and thousands of people died. So there is one very famous novel by Sarachandra Chattopadhyay called Shrikanto. In that, the protagonist's beloved, Raj Lakshmi, she dies of cholera. And to a certain extent, Srikanto is shown as a person who is mobilizing forces in order to curb the disease. But he doesn't exactly become very much successful in that, because obviously of the class differences, and then also the social orthodoxy that is there at that point. Apart from that, I have not gone. I have not come across a lot of disease references. It's mostly the references to disease are kind of like a how do I put this, plot point, a Deus Ex Machina kind of thing. Mostly, as a curse to some character. In one of the novellas by Sarachandra Chattopadhyay called Ramesh Sumati, in that in that text, something very interesting happens. So the protagonist, he is a very delinquent kind of a boy, and he is shown to contract some kind of fever. I've read it like a long time back. I'm not entirely sure what that particular fever was, if it was seasonal fever or if it was something like malaria. But like he has the like I can think of him treated as a scapegoat figure. Are you guys familiar with the concept of the scapegoat? So the scapegoat is this classical, I mean, Greek figure, in which this particular figure takes on the sins or the collective bad deeds of the society, and it usually manifests in some sort of as some sort of disease, either chronic or some kind of an epidemic. And when this person is either killed off, or maybe he purges himself of that kind of sin, the entire society is brought back into balance. So I feel that, I mean, I'm not sure if anybody has read that particular novella over here. If you do read that particular novella, seeing Ram himself as from the point of view of the scapegoat helps. Apart from that, I'm not familiar with the other texts that have been mentioned here by Tara Shankar and all these people. I mean, those are a lot longer novels. I'm not familiar with those. So actually, that's the problem. I mean, Tagore and I think Tara Shankar's Gana Devata is mentioned. It's one of his greatest works, and yeah, the sheer volume of those works are also scary for me. I don't profess to be a particular expert in Bengali literature, but yeah, I've read some of these. Sarat Chandra is actually very easy to follow, I would say, like among all these authors. So if people are interested, if not Srikanto, at least try to give Ramesh Shumati a read. It's short and it's very interesting. Like the particular use of the scapegoat angle was very interesting for me. Apart from that, since Sarachandra is a very famous author, I'm sure that something can be found. I'll check. I'll check, and I'll try to find the best translation available, and I'll send it in the group.
I have a few points to like not something to add up, but it's very interesting presentation because first of all, it's out of my area, so I'm happy to listen. I have a lot of. I observe that usually when me and Thiyagaraj used to have a discussion, at the end I used to give him the gist of points at whatever he made to make him happy. I will do that one. First, I will do that. Second, I have two questions along with that summary. So I will do that. Aryan, if Aryan has any other insights, then I will do it in last. But if he has not, I mean, if he doesn't have any points to add up, then I will.
I think you can go ahead, Aditya. If something comes to mind, I'll share. Right now, I don't think so.
Great, yeah. So, right from the the way he started with the Vedic age, and how the mosquito is being given name, and of course it is also given the in our caption. I mean, what is this? Like the message box. So yeah, then he shifted to the East India Company establishment, and how the industrial terrain, perhaps the word could be a right word, industrial terrain altered our history, our past, and in that the migration issue, how it indulge in the aspect of malaria, how people are affected by the hygienes, in hygiene and sanitary issues, etc. Then moving on to the colonial times and connection it had with the Suez Canal. That was a brilliant insight. I mean, it actually pitched me to other book I read. This is my first book when I entered when I was introduced to this field. Uh, I'm working in Bardiyar University. Me and my research supervisor were so new to health humanities back in 2021 because nobody did HH under him. So when I start with him, I asked him to from which book shall I start? He just typed health humanities in the Google. So there was list of books that came in the Google. So he is like, okay, start with the first text. It's like that he told. That was a book title called Health Citizenship. Sorry, you should switch on the mic. You switch on the mic. Yeah, great. So nothing I'm going to say harmfully project my professor, so don't need to worry. It's just a past. So Health Citizenship is the book that I can to add a insight here. It's a wonderful text. Why I should, yeah, why I'm adding here is that that book has a global that book will provide you a global context. Dorothy Portman, I think it is published in 2011, I guess. Quite relevant. Dorothy Portman, Health Citizenship. It will be the yellow color book with a black shade, something like that. So it will track you towards the global context. What are the atrocities that done during the World War time, pre-World War, and post-World War? Countries that in the present days claims that they are the sanitary subjects or the Anglophonic higher income countries that they claim to be the cleansing world, whatever they claim. So during the time, it was the way they treated their landscape, how the disease was so infectious, affected the layman and the people who the innocents. And moreover, more importantly, during the time, during the war time, how it affected women, the women who participated in World War as a soldier, or as a nurse, as a frontline workers. How did it affect them? Not just of some like it broadly speaks about the public health. That is for sure. It also deals with how sexual harassment, raping issues, because of that, how the disease boomed at that point. So it gives you a larger connection, not just as just a public health issue. It connects so much broadly. So that text came in my mind. So yeah. Then the mythological connection that you brought is very insightful. Joreshwara, right? Joreshwara. So from the sweat of Lord Shiva's third eye, that was amazing. That was amazing aspect. And the nomenclature that you have brought for malaria, that is it's more insightful. Then the jute cultivation during the colonial time in the Bengal, that how it it paid more way for this issue. And the government that the policies that government that didn't take off properly, and of course this I'm I need one more time if I could listen to the the Shotralog and Bhatralog belief. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. If you could, tell me once again. Of course, after the others' insight, I would be to observe it. And I'm sorry, I didn't listen to it. Yeah, properly. Then the text that you have shared, the broad text literary representation of pandemic, epidemic, and pestilence, that was nice. And yeah, now coming to my one question: how malaria as a disease and metaphor is captured in other religious belief and system? This is my only question. I mean, sorry, one question. And the other question is the Joreshwara that you're told. Does it have any connection with Madhwa community? Yeah, these are the two questions. Okay. It's coming with Lord Shiva, and so I thought, yeah, Shitala Mata. Okay. 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 The recuperation process. I get it. I get it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then I get it. I get it. It's very interesting. Yeah. Mm. You mean to say the folk deity that can be connected in other religious belief also? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in that sense, this Joreshwara it can have multiple names in multiple. Uh, oh, Jarashur. Okay. Mhm. Okay. First question is what is what concept? Yeah. First question is how malaria as a disease and metaphor is captured in other religious belief and system. Mm. Mm. Pursuits. Have a unique pattern. Like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, more of generic.
Um, I don't know. While saying that when it comes to religion, logic takes a backseat, I'm not very sure about that because much of our, Ayurvedic, Ayurvedic science, and it's tough calling it science when we are so much, blinded by the Western empiricism, because Ayurvedic Ayurveda has also used the similar kind of theories of humor and all those things that Western science had used once upon a time. So there is logic. There is a lot of logic because while writing my paper on Shitala, uh, like the kind of things that we do in our Ayurvedic rituals. There is a ritualistic aspect of Ayurveda, and there is also a scientific aspect of Ayurveda. So the practices that we have had do actually have a scientific basis because say for instance I'm very much not aware of the other things, but I'm definitely aware of what we do in what was done during smallpox. So uh, part of the entire process is to bring down a person's body temperature. So the all the things that were done, like giving a cold bath, and then also using the paste of neem, on the pustules and everything, those do have some medicinal, a lot of significant medicinal value. The only difference is, as you have pointed out, Tyagraj, is that we didn't have documented evidence. We didn't always have a cause effect, you know, reasoning, and we didn't document the facts.
Yeah,
That's one of the major factors as to why we fell back when Western empiricism came out on top. So that is why we were relegated to pseudoscience or superstition and all those things. But I do think that there was a basis in fact.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it does. It does.
moreover, reading.
Uh, so religion, by religion, do you mean only the ritualistic aspects? Mhm. Yeah. Even the symbolism, even the religious symbolism that comes now, even the metaphor is kind of talking about the physiology. The way we have boiled it down to certain visible figures is a pity, because the metaphor of Shitala, you did read the book by Fabrizio Ferrari, right? So where he has talked about how in the Vedic and other medicinal texts, Shitala, it wasn't necessarily a goddess. The entire term meant cooling down of the body. So even the physiology of the epidemic, like the how do I put this? The epidemiology. Yeah. So that is very metaphorical. So the goddess kind of represents the epidemiology as well, like how the you are aware of the story like I'm guessing the others might not be. So Sheetala is supposed to be the infector. Like when she is absolutely angry at people, she would introduce the smallpox virus, the seeds of discord among the people. She is the infector, and she's also the entity which purifies the body. So once the fever goes down, you are safe. So I guess metaphors also have a way of carrying forward our knowledge. It's just that most people probably don't think of the scientific aspect, and they just adhere to it, in a superstitious way. Yeah. Yes.
More of obsession, ritual obsession rather than the cure. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, it's the Night of the Scorpion tendency, if you are aware of the poem. That's the general tendency of Indian rural areas. So that is an issue. Have you talked about you also talked about the seed theory that Shushruta had talked about. So can it be in the West also there was this not very popular theory of the uh, yeah, like they were like germ pores, something like that. It was not very popular. It didn't become very popular. But then they believed that there was some kind of pollen or some kind of things that infect people. The miasma theory was more popular, but then there was also this particular theory which said that there were seeds or pollens, that kind of thing, also infecting people. So I was wondering whether if Shushruta's theory had it gotten more popular among people, maybe the germ theory might have come up a little faster. Instead of happening in the 20th century, it might have come up a lot earlier.
Yeah, like Annie has added a point there.
Yeah, I wanted to say that I might leave a bit early today, but yeah, I've posted the Susan Wadley article on the group in case others are not yet familiar with it. The one about Sheetala, the full one. One second. Pritikana, could you tell me more about Fabrizio Ferrari? You had mentioned that scholar. So could you
Yeah,
provide
so
more context?
Fabrizio Ferrari is one of the most famous Shitala scholars. He has done a very wide research on what Shitala has represented across India, especially in Bengal. Since Shitala's lasting effects are as a goddess of disease is there in the eastern regions of India. He has, I think, some 3 books on Shitala. Like one is though absolutely is on Shitala, and then there is another called Religion Healing. Just let me check the three books. I'll just post it in the group. Most of them are not available on the internet. Only one is, I think. So I had bought one of the books. I have like hard copy, but I am not sure how to post it. So I'll have to see if it is available. I'll ask a couple of people around. If it is available, then well and good.
Yeah, I wonder if someone has worked as extensively on the South, Mariamma. I wonder if
Uh,
anybody's done that.
there is one author called Ayappan, A. Ayappan. There is one article on folklore, Taylor and Francis. He has done some work on like it's mostly on smallpox itself, but he has a couple of mentions. He mentions Mariamman as well, I think. Um, I'm not sure if there are specific.
Yeah, yeah, she has one article.
Fabrizio Ferrari's this book is particularly on Shitala, religion, devotion, and medicine in North India, the healing power of Shitala. This is the one I have a hard copy of, and I'll have to check if there is any soft copy. I hadn't found it at that time, so I'll have to check. Apart from that, let me see.
Bro, unmute your mic.
Thiyagaraj, well, I was listening to your conversations, okay? It was really interesting. Um, one of the questions which came to my mind was basically because I'm more into the effect or affective theory part. That is what comes to my mind, okay? So one question is how, how this malaria becomes an epistemic wound, okay, in the how it becomes an epistemic wound, or rather how it forms a traumatic experience for the people is one of the way in which you can look at the essay. So and one evident example which is being suggested is misinformation. where you have already discussed how misinformation was a mode of regulating the public's health, and the example was through divine retribution, which we have already discussed. And when you look into the divine retribution, where you see the origins of sin, and how sin compounds to, or sin compounds to shame or humiliation. So a closer analysis of misinformation suggests how shame becomes a dominant way of affecting the people. So this is the way how the consciousness of the people could have been affected is through misinformation. And that misinformation, when it's compounded with shame, the population can be regulated. Now, this is basically an effective way of understanding, because in the essay it has been said you could see the illness in 3 stages, right? Like, for example, the first one based on commissions, the agendas and all, and the second one, the illness itself. So in the illness itself, if you look at the affective turn, that is what it's a way of looking at the illness. Yeah, because my area is not in infectious diseases. Yeah, I just went through the essay, through the chapter. Yeah, how it forms the, how it affects the larger population, how it becomes a cultural trauma. Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
Your skin, the skin basically melts. It's that bad.
Yeah. Okay. Malaria. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe the infectious disease as a whole, I was trying to perceive, how it affects the population, because when you think about malaria, obviously cholera comes into play, then smallpox. Yeah. And
the word. Sorry, go ahead, Jilu.
I like the metaphor example which you both were trying to establish, right? Because I always find difficult to associate with metaphors. Okay, so especially when I was reading this epidemic narratives, I felt often you can see certain words like you fight epidemics, those images coming to your mind. Now, if you learn the historical discourse of this epidemic, it brings into question the redefinition of language itself. Yeah. So, but the way you establish the importance of metaphors also plays an important role.
Yeah, war metaphors, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I have
about.
Yeah, sorry, Anne, you continue. Finish.
Yeah, about Jilu's first point, the part about the scar and the effect that the effect and the effect that it leaves behind, right? If you think about the word stigma itself, stigmata, it comes from the wound on Jesus Christ, right? So it comes from the fact that there is a wound, there is a puncture, there is an opening. So that there is definitely a connection to be made there. The inherent stigma of something as violent as a smallpox scar, as excessive as that, because it's breaking boundaries. Right?
But yeah, I have a small doubt in this as you know, but finally she made the context more of an infectious disease. But particularly if we speak of malaria or any such in a particular way, how can we say that it creates a lot of the issue of shame, the affect? Because see, yeah, back in 50, 60 years before, it would affect a lot. But then in the present context, there are a lot of cure, facial cream, or any other, I'm using a very generic term. Sorry, I don't know the particular phrase to refill the term, but you have a lot of facial cream and creams that could cure, rebuild the skin, uh, melt, melting, as she rightly pointed out. Because in today's context, there are a lot of medications to cure the injuries, right? So how you place this as a particular disease? How can we place this in the context of shame? Because uh, even as Thiyagaraj has mentioned, it's more of a generic disease. Like today, it is the trait is so common, right? As if we speak of fever, yeah, we have variation of symptoms, and all the variation of symptoms has fever inside. So like how you place the shame as a context in this particular context. Yeah, absolutely. Tenaciously reliant.
If you want to think of shame relating to a disease, in the modern scenario at least, I could think of AIDS as one of the major diseases that has shame as an inherent part of the disease. Venereal diseases like which the sexually transmitted diseases themselves are
Yeah.
themselves have this element of shame involved.
Yes, as
uh,
an infectious disease
yeah,
brought. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. As such, malaria, cholera, these kind of diseases, I think they have faded into the background, so to speak. I feel the kind of shame
Yeah, proper
once
view. Very
smallpox
good.
is almost it's kind of gone. So now we have a bit of chicken pox at times. So and it's affects are more or less it's like gone within a few weeks. So I don't think we have with colonial diseases. I feel like their age is almost kind of done. If you have to think of shame, I feel like you can explore AIDS as one of the major, diseases that is a veritable fountain of that, because of its mode of transmission, because
Yes.
of its
Even
the
the origin
impact
of the
on the
disease,
body.
yeah, the very
Yeah.
origin of the disease itself a shame, right? It's not
Yeah.
the
So
AIDS.
yeah, that's what the mode of
It's
transmission, then the impact on the body because of the medicine in itself. So because of the medicines, you have either you know uh, uh, become like a balloon, or either you become like a corpse. So that intense affecting of your features is something a lot of patients don't take too well. So that's there. What else? Yeah, so these are the things that can be thought of when it comes to shame. As for in Ebola also, there is another. I mean, if you are thinking of the angle of shame, in Ebola, you basically lose control of your. At one point, you lose control of your bowel movement, and then you start to bleed out of your pores. So that is another level of shame. You can think of that, like where you lose
yeah,
control of your body, basically
of-
body fluids.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
that aspect.
conversely, on the other hand, if we look carefully, chickenpox is more treated as a resilience, right? Like people used to say, if once you get a chickenpox, you get a lot of resistance, so you would not be
Yeah.
affected by. Yeah.
They say that for measles as well, but I can attest to the fact that it's not true because I got measles thrice in my life. So I'm not sure.
I get it.
Yes. Yes, I did. I did. I got a vaccination shot, and on the 21st day of my life, I got measles, and then when I was 5 years old, I got measles again, and then when I was around, I think, 13 years old, I got measles again. So I have no idea what happened to me.
Yeah, it must be very
No, 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 no. Of course not. Of course not. Syphilis, yeah. All the sexually transmitted diseases are like that, I guess.
because it started as a grid, right? Age, I mean, gay-related immune deficiency. The very phrase itself is a very big shame
Yes.
for a particular community. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also found, like, during COVID-19, there were a few articles I found on the internet where people are worshipping Shitala for COVID as well. So I guess, yeah, Corona Sur and Corona Ma and all those things.
Corona. Yeah.
So yeah.
One God, many disease. Wow. Because uh, why? Maybe because metaphorically they are connecting one way or other. All the disease that they speak has a common pattern of symptoms. Of course, in the second or in the primary level, the symptoms are different. But then the underlying symptoms are more common. Any infectious disease you speak of, it has this this fever, this weight loss, running nose, and issues in bowel movement. All this, it is a so common trait maybe. Yes,
Yeah.
in a penicillin way. Yeah. Yeah. Medicine.
Pray to God.
Correct. Yeah. So Trump. So Trump. Yeah. By the way, this
You
may
you
not be
basically can't
happen because
you basically can't have a cure that early. You can't. I mean, you need to have some time. And well, epidemic, yeah.
more of a post-human tendency that we are bringing to ourselves, I guess. Bro, Aryan Thakur, I think we are speaking for a long time.
Yeah, it was about the aspect of the Devis that I found very interesting, and especially the discussion that went on after. It reminded me of something related to my research. This Shitala Devi, or Shitala Mata as it is rather called in northern part of India. Particularly, there was a period in Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh when smallpox, Rajasthan actually, Gujarat and Rajasthan, when smallpox was not as prevalent anymore. There was a period when the cases had decreased significantly, and but these Devis had become such a cultural significant part of the communities there. It was particularly the tribal communities like Dodhia and others that it became so important to them that at that point they probably needed a Devi. So henceforth, one of the anti-liquor agitations that started in that region, it was through a Devi called Salabai. And the period of this agitation was right after the going away of smallpox in that region. And Shitala Devi was replaced by Salabai. And there was a lot of other things like spirit question. This Salabai communicated through mediums and all. So yeah, it was very interesting, this discussion on Devis, because currently I'm about to write a paper on this also, this Salabai, this liquor agitation and Devis and all. So it was very interesting to hear all this. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yes.
So roughly when will they notify about it? Like
Yeah.
any idea? Okay. Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I'll just tell you my Viva is on 8th. My Viva is on 8th, and I have an offer from Geetam University, and I have to join on 14th. So I'm not saying that this is not important. Thank you. And but like
congratulations.
I currently am a little frazzled with all the things that is going on. I will try to do it by August. By August for sure. I'll try to do. But like in July it will be a little hectic for me. So thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Um, she's going to reply, or shall I?
So, when you say that convening a session, we are going to do what
No, it is
you
going to be
did
easy.
today. Okay.
It's just with us.
Yeah.
Just
Sure.
with us, yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Just like how Tyagarajan did, like you will be presenting a chapter and we will be discussing. That's
Okay.
it.
Sure.
Yeah. So the thing is, in my condition, I'm pleased. I'm writing my thesis, and I cannot distract myself and go and study these things because
Yeah, you can talk about your thesis as well if you want
it's too early to speak about my thesis. I'm in the writing process. At least I need to submit so that I can speak about my. I'm very happy to speak about my thesis, but then I'm right. It is in the writing process, so I cannot. The crafting. Huh?
Maybe I'll discuss my thesis. That would be a better option, I guess. So I can, because I still don't have clarity regarding my chapters and all. So if I discuss with you and you could give some suggestions, it would be beneficial for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Pleasure. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I haven't met Jilu before. Could you please introduce yourself? Ah, okay. 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 Which university, which institute are you working with?
Institute of English, which is under University of Kerala.
Kerala. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Have you been there?
Okay.
Yeah, I understood. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Jilu.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
And Aryan, may I know where you're from?
Yeah. I am in EFLU. I'm a first year PhD
Nice.
scholar, and I am from
IFLU Hyderabad?
yeah.
Oh, nice. We can meet. I'm going to Geetam
Oh,
Hyderabad,
yeah.
so yeah, we can meet.
Yeah, that will be really nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did study from HU, so I did my masters.
All right, that is nice.
Yeah. Basically, I'm going back to my old city.
Hyderabad is nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
until I finish my thesis, you guys please handle this discussion session. But once I finish, I'll definitely I'll present on it, because I have presented before, so I'm not hesitant here. This is so occupied I'm with my thesis, so I cannot just close the book and come back, sit with another text. No, right now it is not possible. I'm so sorry for that. That I can actually do. So maybe after Jilu, I can do that.
Yeah, please. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. Cool idea. Yeah, it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant discussion. I really have so much insightful thoughts from your side. It's amazing. Yeah.
Okay then. Bye.
Thank you,
Good night.
Pritikana. Thank you, Thiyagaraj.
Yeah.
Aryan.
Good night. Bye. Thank you all. Yeah.